G'day guys, and welcome to another YouTube lesson. Today we're going to be taking a look at the operations business function and the subtopic strategies. We're looking at one syllabus dot point today, which is overcoming resistance to change. Now, overcoming resistance to change has 5 or 6 different parts to it. Financial costs, purchasing new equipment, redundancy payments, retraining, reorganizing plant layout, and also the non-financial costs, the rest were financial costs, the non-financial cost of inertia. Probably one of the most difficult to overcome. Now, again, it's important to define each of these particular dot points, but equally, as I've said many times, but you've got to keep saying it and saying it again sometimes. You need to be able to explain how it's an influence, how it's a process, in this instance, how it's a strategy. An operations strategy is something that the operations business function can use to improve the operating process, i.e. make the product at a reduced price, or improved quality, or even to reduce lead times. Note, this is where kids get a little bit confused with this syllabus dot point. Note that financial costs and retraining and purchasing new equipment, etc., are not good things in the short term. These are meant to be strategies, but they're not good things in the short term. It may cost the business function more money. How's this a strategy? But in the long term, it will bring benefits for the business. You'll need to explain this in an essay. All right, so when we talk about overcoming resistance to change, that makes sense as a strategy. But purchasing new equipment, that's a cost. How's that good? It's good because short-term pain, long-term gain. Same with redundancy payments. Short-term pain, long-term gain. So they are strategies because in the short term it will have a capital outlay for purchasing new equipment, but in the long term it will be beneficial. All right, now, overcoming resistance to change. There's 2 types of forces. You have driving forces. Those are the forces that push towards the need for change, and generally management are doing that, but not always. Then you have restraining forces, and that's where inertia often comes in. They're the forces that hold the business back and resist any change that is attempted. Now, the challenge for management is to identify and develop strategies to overcome the resistance to change. All right, all of these these following ones are examples of financial costs, except for inertia. So financial costs aren't the strategy itself, it's just identifying that purchasing new equipment, redundancy payments, etc. These are all financial costs for the business. And the strategy is to be able to help the workplace overcome these restraining influences. Financial costs may be associated with purchasing new equipment. Redundancy payments for employees replaced by capital or technology. There's retraining costs to operate and manage new equipment, technology, and the reorganization costs associated with changing the layout of the plant, factory, office. So it's vital to weigh up these short-term costs against the long-term benefits to see if it's going to be a useful operational strategy, because it may not be. You've got to do the maths and to see whether it's going to be worth it. Now, purchasing new equipment. Managers must assess the cost of the installation of the equipment, its impact on production, and the expected profitability generated by the change, especially in the medium to long term. So several technological changes may not be simple to implement, but result in long-term reduction in operating costs, decreased time delays in communication, and faster decision-making processes. So again, the skill as a student is to be able to explain that purchasing new equipment is going to be a long-term strategy, even though it will cost the business money in the short term, because in the long term it will be worth it. The next dot point is redundancy payments. an employee redundancy occurs when a worker is no longer required because their job no longer exists or they've been replaced by new technology or equipment. Capital labour substitution. The role may have become automated and therefore no longer exists. It's expensive to make your workers redundant. Again, there's short-term cost. In addition to this, there's the social cost of doing so, of making lots of redundancies. It's difficult for a business to make this decision. However, in the long term, many positions will face redundancy if a business does not make the tough initial decision. And if so, it will lose its operational competitive advantage. And you're seeing that with lots of businesses around Australia, especially manufacturing. They've had to outsource, make that difficult redundancy payments decision in order to be able to stay afloat and keep the rest of the business working and remaining profitable. Now, the next dot point is retraining. Without adequate training, the benefits of new equipment, technology, or new processes can't be realised, or won't be fully realised. The implementation of comprehensive training programs go a long way to overcoming employees' resistance to change. So retraining is definitely a strategy. Again, it costs money in the short term, but if you're going to make redundancy payments, maybe it's cheaper to retrain workers into other aspects of the business, other parts. If you're going to purchase new equipment, old mate over there doing this particular function doesn't know how to use that new equipment. You've got to retrain them, otherwise you won't reap those full benefits. Now, an additional dot point we have now is reorganizing plant layout. The layout of the plant, where this machine goes there, that one goes there. You can move them around to be able to make them more efficient. So reorganizing plant layout, this refers to moving around, or the movement around of machinery, and it can be an expensive and time-consuming exercise. Short-term pain, long-term gain. Business may have to shut down for a period of time while the renovations take place. However, it may be of benefit to do so, especially for the long-term survival of the business, and could stop you from becoming insolvent or give you a competitive advantage. Again, it's another, and it's the last one of the financial costs, but it's short-term financial cost for long-term competitive advantage. Inertia is the final one. Now, inertia is not necessarily a financial cost. Initial stakeholders such as owners, managers, and employees, the workers, can become comfortable in a stable environment as there is a feeling of security and predictability. This want to keep things the same, called the status quo, it's called inertia. It's generally a normal human emotion. People often do not want to change, even though they know it's for the better. E.g., when I came to my new school, I've been there for some time now, but it's a better school than the previous one I was at, and I'm glad I'm here. But to make that move, it's hard. Why is it hard? Because it's human nature to want to generally keep doing things you're comfortable with. So workers, managers, shareholders, they often like the way things are. To have to change, for most people, you got to see a decent benefit out of doing so. And that's the job of the manager. If it's going to work, and it doesn't always, so not change for change's sake, but their job is to convince, to become a driving force to bring about change. It's the role of the operation manager to push through this and to try and help. This is where the strategy comes in with all of these things, to try and help overcome resistance to change. Because purchasing new equipment, short-term costs, but the strategy here is to help overcome any resistance to change so that you can gain those long-term benefits. All right, guys, thanks again, and I'll see you next lesson. Goodbye.